After 18 years of marriage, my wife cheated and walked out. My stepdaughter called me a coward for not fighting to keep the family together. I filed for divorce and gave up my parental rights. 3 months later, they tried to reconnect, but I had already moved on. Hello Reddit I+ here. I-46M was married for 18 years. 18 long committed years. My wife, Sandra, 44F, came into the relationship with a 3-year-old daughter, Kayla. I married them both, in a way. I raised Kayla like my own, from bedtime stories to ER visits to piano recitals, where she'd nervously plunk one-handed songs while looking back at me for approval. I was dad in everything but biology. Sandra and I had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never imagined she'd betray me. I thought we were solid. I worked hard, running a small but stable HVAC business. I wasn't rich, but I made sure they had everything. Every birthday, every vacation, even when times were lean, they came first. Always. Looking back, I think I missed the signs. Sandra started working out more, getting girl nights more frequently, hiding her phone like it was the nuclear codes. I asked once, just once, if something was going on. She said I was paranoid and needed therapy, that I was insecure, so I shut up, until I didn't. 6 months before everything imploded, I found a receipt in her coat pocket. It was from a hotel in the city, same date as one of her girls' retreats. I wasn't stupid. I didn't confront her right away. I played dumb and gathered more. Messages on her smartwatch, oddly timed meetings with a coworker named Tom, and the final blow, a photo sent to her private email that she'd forgotten to log out of on the family iPad. It was her, in bed, with him, smiling like a damn teenager. I confronted her that night. She didn't deny it. In fact, she was relieved. Said she'd been feeling lost for years and didn't know how to tell me. Then she hit me with the cliché, "Tom makes me feel alive again." I didn't scream, didn't break anything. I just stood there. When I told Kayla, now 21, home from college, she exploded. At me. "You're just going to let mom go? You're not even going to fight for this family? God, you're a coward." That broke me more than the cheating. All I ever wanted was to give her a life better than the one I had. I'd adopted her in every way that mattered. I walked her to kindergarten, taught her how to ride a bike, helped her through her first breakup. And now, I was just the coward who let mom go, so I stopped trying. I filed for divorce within a week, gave Sandra the house, the car, even split the retirement funds evenly. I wanted it done, over. Then I made one of the hardest decisions of my life. I relinquished my parental rights to Kayla. Not out of spite, but because she clearly no longer saw me as a father. I wasn't about to beg for a title that meant nothing to her anymore. I moved 3 hours north to a small town where nobody knew my name, bought a fixer-upper, and spent long months putting it back together with my own hands. Drywall, paint, landscaping. It became my therapy. I also got into photography, something I'd always been curious about but never had time for. Made new friends, even dated casually, no expectations, just peace. For the first time in 2 decades, I was building something for me. 3 months after the divorce finalized, I got a message. First from Kayla. "Hey, I overreacted. I didn't mean what I said. Can we talk?" Then Sandra. "I know you probably hate me, but I'd really like to have a conversation. Tom and I aren't together anymore." Of course not. Tom was married. Turns out he went back to his wife. Guess his alive again phase had an expiration date. I ignored both messages at first. Then Kayla emailed me a photo, the one from her graduation ceremony, the one I wasn't invited to. She was crying. "I miss my dad," she wrote. It gutted me, but something in me had changed. Maybe snapped, maybe healed, I don't know. I replied, "I loved you like my own, always, but the version of me you miss died the day you called him a coward. I truly hope you find peace. But I've moved on." I never replied to Sandra. The ending. They wrote themselves. A mutual friend later told me that Sandra had to sell the house. Her new boyfriend bailed and she couldn't keep up with the mortgage. Kayla moved back in for a while but then left for a job in another state. They're not on great terms anymore, apparently. Meanwhile, I'm still in that little town. I teach a photography class once a week and take long hikes with my dog, Rufus. People always ask me if I regret not fighting for my marriage. I fought for 18 years. I gave everything I had. Love, time, fatherhood. And when it all came crashing down, I didn't raise hell. I walked away with my dignity, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the battlefield behind. A month after I shut the door on Kayla and ignored Sandra's message, I thought that would be it. I was finally free, or so I thought. Then came the envelope. Thick. Certified. Return address? Sandra's lawyer. At first, I thought maybe it was some financial loose end from the divorce. Instead, it was something else entirely. She was filing for spousal support. Let me clarify, in the divorce, I voluntarily gave her the house, the car, and half of our savings. She never asked for alimony, never mentioned it, said she didn't want to make things messy, and now, months after everything was finalized, she was asking for monthly support, claiming she was unable to maintain her standard of living. Turns out, standard of living meant losing the man she cheated with, blowing through her share of the savings, and being unable to hold down a job after quitting hers for a fresh start with Tom. Her petition claimed she had become dependent on my financial and emotional stability over the years, and that I had abandoned the marital responsibility prematurely. Prematurely? After 18 years? I laughed. Then I got angry, but I didn't lose my temper. Instead, I called the best attorney I could find in my new area, a no-nonsense, sharp-witted woman named Carol who looked over the paperwork and raised an eyebrow so high it practically hit the ceiling. "She really thinks the court's going to fall for this?" she muttered. "Let's remind her that she left you, not the other way around." We gathered every receipt, every text, every hotel record, and all the evidence I had from before the divorce. I even handed over the digital trail that showed when she began seeing Tom, nearly a year before we split. Carol built a timeline that painted Sandra not as a victim of abandonment, but as a woman who had methodically dismantled her own marriage. Then came the hearing. In court, Sandra showed up in a gray suit, hair pulled tight, makeup heavy. She tried to look modest and pitiful, but her eyes still had that same edge, like she was performing grief instead of feeling it. I barely recognized the woman I once loved. Her lawyer spun the story like a tragic soap opera. Mrs. Carter left the marriage under emotional distress after years of neglect. She gave up her career to support her husband's ambitions and was cast aside when he no longer needed her. When it was our turn, Carol stood up and calmly dismantled the lies. Let's talk about the emotional distress that took place in a hotel room with her co-worker, while still married. Let's talk about the multiple documented nights out during which she left our client home alone to care for her daughter and maintain the home. Let's talk about the voluntary split of assets that already heavily favored her. Then came the dagger. Carol pulled up Kayla's message, the one where she called me a coward for not fighting to keep the family together, and presented it as part of the record. Even the daughter she claims he abandoned admits that her mother left of her own accord, and that Mr. Carter simply respected their wishes. The judge reviewed everything, said he would need time to deliberate. Sandra glared at me on the way out. She whispered, "You're still heartless." I didn't respond. There was no use arguing with someone who thought love meant submission. The ruling 2 weeks later, we got the verdict. Request for spousal support. Denied. The court ruled that Sandra was not entitled to further financial compensation. Not only had she voluntarily ended the marriage, but she had received a fair and generous settlement, one that she had clearly mismanaged. The judge also added that any future attempt to reopen closed financial matters without new, substantial evidence would be seen as harassment. That was the nail in the coffin. Kayla messaged me again 2 days later. This time, her tone had changed. "I didn't know she was going to do that. I swear, she didn't tell me she was suing you." I believed her, but it didn't matter anymore. Too much had happened. I didn't feel hatred or vengeance, just emptiness. I replied, "You'll always be a part of my story, but I've closed that chapter. I wish you well." She never wrote back after that. Sandra, on the other hand, took to Facebook, posting cryptic quotes about betrayal, deadbeat men, and how she survived the worst kind of emotional abuse. I didn't respond publicly, didn't defend myself, let her rot in her curated martyrdom. Now it's been 2 years since all of that. I'm still living in the same small town, still teaching photography and hiking on weekends. I met someone, not serious yet, but real, honest. She knows everything, and she respects my silence more than any dramatic declarations. Sandra, from what I've heard, moved in with a cousin after losing the house. She's working part-time and apparently trying to get Kayla to move back in, but the damage between them is done too. As for me, I don't regret anything. Not the silence, not the walk away, not even the legal battle. Because some people don't want reconciliation. They want reintegration into your life, so they can tear it down again. And I've already rebuilt mine, from the foundation up, with peace, with dignity, without them.